Can you see me?
Yep. Hey, Brittany. We're
Hi.
just now going live, so we will introduce you in just a few minutes, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jenny Beaver, and I'm the CEO of Fourth Trimester Arizona, a grassroots 501c3 collaborative of parents, families, health professionals, educators, and local organizations. We're on a mission to change the culture of parenting so no one has to do it alone, including us. Thank you for joining us today for our fourth trimester ecosystem conversation. The pandemic has been disruptive on many fronts, and childcare has certainly been one of the major challenges. Elizabeth, you want to switch this slide? Perfect, thank you. This chart from the 2020 Arizona Department of Health statewide maternal child health needs report demonstrates just how critical childcare is for women's wellness. As you can see, childcare is listed in all categories as the first or second barrier to receiving the most needed women's health services. It's huge, right? And I'm sure any of you who are on that have children or who are serving people with children know that this is just so important. If you want to change the slide for me. So for those of you who may be less familiar with Fourth Trimester Arizona, I'll begin with a brief introduction of our organization. We connect maternal and child health providers, social support systems, and parent support groups to foster collaboration, education, and to increase access to local resources. Our programming includes three main focus areas: our monthly village meetups for new parents, our annual Fourth Trimester conference for both parents and professionals, and lastly, today's focus area, our developing Fourth Trimester ecosystem initiative for all who care for pregnant people, new mothers, and their babies. And the goal of the Fourth Trimester ecosystem is to facilitate inclusive conversations about what is working and what needs to change to better support new families in Arizona. I am delighted to announce that registration for Arizona's inaugural Fourth Trimester ecosystem is live, and we already have over 230 registrants. So that's huge. The Ecosystem Summit will be a full-day virtual event for all those who support new families, including healthcare providers, birth workers, community health workers, childcare providers, researchers, nonprofits, and more. If you support new families, then we want you there. Together, we'll discuss where our families have been during this pandemic, where they are now, and how we can move forward as a unified statewide Fourth Trimester ecosystem of those who give care and support to new parents. Sessions will include maternal and infant mental health, birthing and postpartum stories, the impact of the past 18 months on Arizona's birthing people of color, and healing from secondary trauma. As a grassroots organization, Fourth Trimester Arizona is so pleased to be able to present this summit with support from the Arizona Department of Health Services and several other sponsors. We will drop the link to register in the chat. There's no cost, and we'd love to have you there. All right, thank you so much, Elizabeth. So for today, I'm so delighted that we're having this conversation because I can't think of anything that has been more impactful for new parents than childcare. And we expect our time together to flow something like this. Our intention is to spend the majority of our time listening to our four speakers' experiences and then discuss what we heard in smaller breakout rooms. Before we get started, let's review just a few key items to ensure everyone is able to fully participate. During the presentations, please post all comments and questions in the chat box. We'll be monitoring the chat and responding to your comments and questions. We also ask that you please remain muted except for when you're in your breakout rooms. Of course, then please unmute and join the discussion. Next, we request that you please enable your video if you're able, especially during breakout sessions. If you run into bandwidth issues, please go ahead and turn off your camera, or if you need to. And lastly, we're recording the session so we can send you and anyone else who registered a recording of the session. And right now we are posting those on our ecosystem website as well. That's on fourthtrimesterarizona.org. Perfect. All right, so now to the part we've all been waiting for. Today we're focusing on the impact of COVID-19 on childcare, and we'll hear from four perspectives in the following order. First, we'll hear from Gail Williams, a mother. Then we'll hear from Jamie Otterson, a preschool director and a mother. Then Brittany Jeske, a preschool program director at the Phoenix YMCA and a mother. And then Joy Levine of the Southwest Maricopa Regional Director of First Things First. We thank each of you for being willing to share your experiences today. For everyone listening, it's helpful to consider that we all come with different maternal and child health focuses, yet we're all interconnected through the perinatal period and beyond. So our first speaker, Gail Williams, is a Tucson native who's lived in Phoenix for over 15 years. Gail is the mother of a 10-year-old son and an 8-month-old twin girls. Wow. In this chapter of life, she is savoring the opportunity to spend precious time as a stay-at-home mom. Professionally, Gail has worked in social services and domestic violence. More recently, she changed career paths to focus on maternal health and postpartum support as a doula, serving in hospitals, birthing centers, and home births. In this role, she offers wisdom, knowledge, and support through trauma-informed care to new and current mothers by helping them transition into their parenting role and breaking free from any birth and postpartum trauma. Gail, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it, especially given that you have a lot going on. So if you want to go ahead and unmute and share your experience with us, we would love to hear it.
I feel all that I mentioned in that bio, like I need that right now. All the wisdom and support. But yeah, my son will be 11 next week, and my twin girls will be 9 months. And it's just been just a whirlwind this last year. So do I just go into my experience? So last year, I was working as a lead teacher with the unaccompanied minors. Getting pregnant was not the plan. I was actually getting ready to have a hysterectomy, and God just had other plans. And so it was right at the height of the pandemic. So I had taken a pregnancy test at home. So I knew I was pregnant. I just didn't know it was with twins. So I had to wait a couple of weeks to get an appointment, just due to, protocol. They weren't letting, people come into the office. You had to schedule the appointment. And once I scheduled the appointment and went and I did the ultrasound, and I just remember the tech letting me know, well, there's not just one, there's two. And I just lost it. I just couldn't believe it. And it was just rough. I have to be honest, I was not happy, just because of the current situation of my job going remote, not knowing what, that was going to look like. And then bringing in two more beings to this, crazy world that we're living in right now. So for me and my boyfriend, we're just kind of like, okay, well, let's figure out what, let's just try to get through these next 9 months and, making sure that you get good prenatal care. I will say that my pregnancy was, health-wise, it was a good, healthy pregnancy. I didn't have any issues. I gained good amount of weight. The fact that it was, I forget, they're die. So it was 2 placentas, I wasn't at a high risk. So that was good. But I will say my OB, it's Dr. Michael Hervey. He was really a lifesaver for me. He really uplifted me. He has experience doing twin deliveries vaginally. So he always kept me very much encouraged, doing check-ins with me. But still is the fact that I had a doula, but at the time when I went to the hospital, a lot of the situation changed. I couldn't bring anybody. It was just me and my partner. I couldn't bring my mom. It was just a very quiet, very quiet in my room in the hospital, not having any visitors. So that part of it was, I feel like I had already been in isolation, like the full 9 months and almost like quarantine at home. And then to bring these girls into the world, it was just challenging. I'm used to having, support from my colleagues. A lot of them are doulas. I have some midwives. That was really like my support system during those 9 months of, just because, again, like I just was not expecting to the situation to turn like that, where I just wasn't going to be not having like that support system with me at the hospital. And then once we had the girls, just having to be more cautious of not having family come over, I didn't really get to enjoy the postpartum part of being at home with the girls, having like my mom help out. She did come for a few days, but my mom, she works in hospice care. So that was just another big risk, that I just really had to, it was just really hard. Just having to put boundaries because people just wanted to come over, and it's like forgetting that we're in a pandemic. I just can't have people come, in and out. And then just the transition for my son, it's been me and him I was a single parent with him, and it was new for him, having a new relationship, being now pregnant with, he's having siblings. We're in a 2-bedroom apartment, having to tiptoe around, having to keep quiet so we're not waking up the girls. So this year was really just a big transition for all of us. I think just trying to figure out my next move, because with this job that I had, they weren't they started off supportive, but then as I started getting closer to delivering the girls, I started getting my obstacles from them where we were remote, but then they were requiring me to come in maybe once or twice. Granted, the area that my job was in, it was a red zone for COVID. So at any moment I could come out of the car, and I'm exposed. So these were things I had to fight with HR. Unfortunately, because we were a smaller organization, my job had more control of just the narrative, like you have to come. And I just ended up making a decision, I don't want to live like that. So I quit. I quit my job in January. This was like a month after having the girls. They were offering me to come, I could come and do part-time, but I just know with being like the lead teacher, I was the main teacher, it would just require a lot of my time. And, this was a big change for me because I've been used to just working, here we just work, and having to just stay home now and then be completely isolated. Mentally, it was starting to wear on me, but then you go into now not having a job, unemployment, that took like 4 months for me to receive my unemployment. So obviously that affects childcare. And then when you look at the cost of childcare, and I have 2, they want $175 each for each twin with a 10% discount. And that just it just wouldn't work. So it was just really a lot of processing, and, me and my partner really just having to make the decision. And, he's been a good support of just like, you know what, Gail, we're not going to stress about this. You focus on the girls. I'm going to work. We'll figure everything out. And it's so hard for me to just let go. Again, it's like when you're used to being productive, moving around, and now having to just sit at home and, be a stay-at-home mom. That just wasn't something that came easy for me. Like I've learned to be a stay-at-home mom, and navigating, having my oldest son, doing remote learning at home. So it was just that first year. I know I'm kind of all over the place. Granted, I've only got 3 hours of sleep today. But it has just been a challenging year. But I am grateful that I didn't get to spend time at home with my son. When he was born, I had to go back to work after a month. But luckily with the job that I had at the time, I could bring him to work. They were very supportive of me nursing. I couldn't take him to work 5 days out of the week, but it was flexible enough where if I could bring him in once or twice, they were totally fine with that. I was able to meet a very good person in my life. She's still in my life. My sitter, she took in my son when he was 7 months old. and now he's going to be 11. So she's been in our lives for a long time. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know how I would have, been able to do it. But, now just having twins, it's not as easy to, just right now with the pandemic, having that trust of where to take them, or just even just the cost alone. I feel kind of just in a position where it's better for me to just stay at home right now.
Yeah.
And just, give at least the girls a year where I can be with them at home. But it's just unfortunate, with just the job that I had, I really enjoyed it, but, they gave me maternity leave, they gave me family medical leave, but it was unpaid. So, and then with cost of living going up, I'm dealing with now my rent went up $200 more. So it was just a lot of figuring out plan. It was no longer plan A, plan B, it was plan B, C, D,
Oh my gosh.
and E.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a transition. It's been a big transition, but like I said, I'm just thankful. My girls are healthy, they're happy. I'm able to see them develop. I'm able to see the milestones that I really missed with my son. So for that, I'm thankful to be home. But yeah, again, it's the childcare issue. That's going to be my next issue, because eventually I'm gonna have to go back to work and see what that's going to look like moving forward.
Wow. Thank you so much, Gail, for sharing with us and being so vulnerable about like all your thoughts during all this time and how this went down for you, because I think that's really important for us to know.
Yeah.
I know we got a lot of comments in here where people are telling you you're amazing, and also like
how
come you didn't get paid leave. Yeah, I mean, so yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
It's disappointing, with this job that I had. It was a new program, so I was really, there from the beginning to the end, and I was really hopeful that they would be supportive, and they were at one point supportive. But with every job, things change, and then just that field working with the unaccompanied minors. That was really hard, and just seeing that we're focusing on trauma-informed care, taking care of these kids, but then it started turning more into these kids are money, and that's where I was like, you know what, I need to be happy. I need to be at a place of peace, and I'm not gonna let them control my narrative. So that was a big moment for me to just say, I'm not going back to work.
Absolutely.
And just quit. So even though, I had to deal with no pay for 4 months, we figured it out. I got a lot of good help, was able to qualify for assistance to get my rent paid, utilities. So that gave us a good cushion of time to be able to not worry about finances.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Gail. I wish I could sit and hear from you more, but I want to move on to our next speaker, because I feel like, many of us have had, experiences during the pandemic that, these need to get out. Yeah. And so I'm so glad that you shared your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll now hear from Jamie Otterson. And Jamie is a preschool director and mother of 3 who has worked in childcare since 2009 in both care providing and managerial positions. Jamie holds both a CDA, Child Development Associates, and NAC, National Administrator certification. And her most recent venture is Kindergarten Readiness Preschool. Jamie has a unique perspective to share, as her youngest child was born in May of this year. Jamie, if you don't mind unmuting, we'd love to hear your experience.
Hi, friends. I'm so excited because these are like the 2 things I'm most passionate about, being a mom and childcare. So I'll try not to talk for 5,000 years, okay? So as Jenny said, I'm Jamie. I'm a mom of 3, this one being my youngest. I have been in childcare for way too long, and I most recently was a center director at the Learning Experience. I started there when they opened in 2018 as a lead teacher, worked my way up to management. While on maternity leave with her, our school was a franchise location, and our franchise owner did not offer paid maternity leave. However, he gave me paid maternity leave because he knew he could not afford to lose me. That school has fallen and done this 100 times, and I was able to build a rapport with the parents and staff and keep the staff for over a year, which if you're in childcare, you know is crazy. And towards the end of my pregnancy, I was working 10 to 12-hour shifts because we were so understaffed, and it was crazy. So during my maternity leave, our franchise school got taken over by corporate and they cleaned house. So we were all let go, and that broke me because that school I poured my heart and soul into it. I had all 3 of my kids there since they were babies, basically. My kid took his first steps there. Like, it was my whole heart, not to mention most of the students were my friends. So it was kind of hard to separate that. It took a really long time for me to mentally be okay after basically getting fired on maternity leave from a place that I was not planning on leaving. And like, I'll get real transparent. I probably wouldn't have had a 3rd kid if it wasn't for me knowing that I was going to have set childcare for her, that I was completely comfortable with the teachers and all of that. Add into that, we also just bought a house that was way out of budget because I was promised a raise when I come back from maternity leave. So we were moving, having a baby, losing jobs, all the fun things on maternity leave. And it was super great. So the crazy part about it all is that I became the director during COVID, which, even if you are the most experienced director in the world, being a director during a pandemic is mind-blowing. And it kind of, the only way we made it through was by my whole staff being a family. Like, I would say, we'll make it work, we always do. And somebody got me like a cursive writing of that picture and framed it in my office because it's just so true. We'll make it work, we always do. And teamwork makes the dream work. And because of the pandemic, everything being so hard, and like, parents were no longer allowed in the building. So you're dropping your kid off with somebody that you probably don't even know, because at this point, the turnover is just unreal. And it takes a lot to build up a basically home for these kids, because we are with these kids more than their parents are. And the parents are just dropping them off at the front door and trusting us to take care of them. And so it was huge for me to feel like I created a safe space for these kiddos and these families, and that it takes a really special person to basically raise other people's kids. And that's what childcare is. So as much as the pandemic negatively, my husband's home, so the kids and dogs are going to go crazy. As much as the pandemic negatively affected childcare and funding for childcare and teachers, I feel like it brought a lot of us together. Like, for instance, the whole crew of teachers and staff that I had at the learning experience, when we all got let go, it's kind of like this unspoken just feeling of togetherness, that we were all in it together every step of the way. And like, we made it work together as a team. And once we all left, basically all the kids left too, because, you know, you invest in the people, not in the building. So like, when those people are no longer there, you don't trust it or don't want to be there or whatever. So of course I'm qualified enough to go get another center director job. And I did apply at plenty places, but having a 3-month-old and 2 other kiddos, what, baby? Okay. Okay, I'll handle it in a minute. Anyways, it's been really hard to find my place again in a career, in motherhood. I totally lost myself as a mom because I was working so much to keep my school afloat. I was even working on maternity leave and not getting paid extra for it. It was crazy. And then to be taken out with the trash when corporate took over was insane. And I still haven't mentally recovered from that, but I have officially decided to stay home and start teaching preschool again in my home. I have such a passion for early education. And I feel like that's what COVID doesn't understand, is that these brains still need to develop. The child brain does not understand that we're quarantining and that you can get sick, and like, they still need A, B, C, and D and all of these things accompanied by being in a preschool or childcare. So I'm hoping that by offering it in my home, it'll be a more secluded environment for those of us who are a little worried about COVID, but still offer education for those of us who want it. And that's basically me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for sharing all your experience and, you know, your experience of having a baby and doing this while you're juggling everything. You're amazing. You're amazing. Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, sending you a hug. So yeah, thanks so much. And so now we're going to hear from Brittany. And Brittany is married and a mother of 2 boys, ages 1 and 3. And she's currently the preschool program director for the YMCA in Phoenix, and has been an early childcare provider and educator for the last 13 years. Brittany is certified in early education and holds a Montessori certification as well. Educating the young is her passion, as are health and fitness. Brittany loves what she does and making a change in little people's lives. So go ahead, Brittany, and unmute yourself and share your experience.
Hello, ladies. I'm Brittany.
Hey.
So obviously we all have pretty similar experiences. I probably could have picked Gail's story, pair it with Jamie's story, and then added it to mine because it's like literally everything. I have a 3.5-year-old, and then I guess I do have a 1-year-old. We actually got pregnant with him November of 2019. So I did not plan on having a pandemic baby because there was no pandemic at the time. But 4 months along into my pregnancy, broke out this pandemic. And I was a director of the first preschool I've ever been a director at. I've been an early childhood teacher for years and years and years. And then I decided I wanted to move up in management because I love teaching, but I was kind of getting burnt out. And then as teachers, you cap out financially. And my husband and I had our first child and everything. And so I'm like, okay, I love teaching, but like $14 an hour ain't gonna cut it. So what else can I do to stay in education, but kind of get that pay? And so I decided I wanted to go after directing. And after being an assistant director for a while, I got my first director position with a preschool that opened. It was her third location. She opened brand new. So I kind of started 30 days after the center opened in 2019, and was kind of learning as I was going business-wise, but it was going really well. We went from like 6 kids to like 65 kids by the time March happened, the pandemic. And so that kind of really threw a lot of things to the wind. And then here I am with my second pregnancy in the middle of the pandemic, also kind of really nervous. I have my little boy in school with me who has asthma. I have Crohn's disease. I had a lot of challenging factors of, should I be going to work every single day? Should I stay home? But I've, like Jamie said, I was in love with my school. It was everything. I helped build it and I wanted to be a part of it. I had my families and my kids. And so I couldn't leave, and we had to make money. So I just kept praying every day that we were safe and everything was going well. And of course, our school shut down, staff left. We literally stayed open just for 15 families because for those 15 families, we were going to make it work. And fast forward to me having my son in August, kind of the same thing. I'm by myself. Fortunately, my parents drove down from Georgia because my mother was super anal about not flying. So she drove from Georgia, her and my dad, and they stayed with my son because we couldn't take our kids to the hospital. And I didn't know anyone here at the time to really watch my kid overnight for us. So she and my dad drove down and stayed with my son while we had our second son in August in the middle of the hot summer heat and the pandemic. And so here I am stuck at home by myself, no friends, no family in the pandemic. It's too hot to go anywhere. And there's a virus. So I literally am in my house all day. And so I ended up going back to work early because it was either stay at home or might as well go back to work and continue building my school and being, my staff was my family. That's who I connected with. But one thing I was talking to Jenny when we spoke is that being in childcare has been so hard for everyone. There are days I'm working 10, 12 hours a day because we have no teachers. So I'm in the classroom. I'm not spending time with my kids to make sure that, your children have a place to come. And so I was telling her one of our biggest struggles was just, I think that we're all in our bubble going through our own things. We forget to give everyone else grace. And if I could have some of my parents actually walk into the class and see our day-to-day of how we struggle behind those beautiful little doors that say, welcome to our preschool, I really feel like it'd be a completely different outlook. And I think that's been the hardest thing is we care so much about what we do. I care about like what my kids, these students are like they're not students, they're my kids. If it's not good enough for my kids, not good enough for them. So the back and forth and a lot of the things that we were going through, it's like, gosh, we're working our butts off and no one's happy. You can't come back. So of course they're not happy. They have to wear masks. They're not happy about that. It was kind of one thing after another. And it really made me question, do I want to do this anymore? I'm getting this for all in. It's like, I don't even see my own kids. I'm out of the door at 6 and I'm home at 7. They go to bed. So it's been a really huge struggle. And I think the last 3 months, I kind of transitioned coming to the YMCA, which has been a huge, they are all about work-life family balance. And that's when I decided to start taking care of myself. And, my kids come first and my family, I can still have my career, still love what I do, but I had to find a way to be happy and not give all of me where I had nothing left for my family. Cause that's really what was happening. I had nothing left for anybody. So I've kind of fallen back in love with my job and have been put in a position that they really do promote work-life family balance. Do your job, and when you're done, please go home. Don't stay here. So I'm also kind of taking out that early childhood center because they are they're struggling so bad with staff. So it's just really, really hard with that part. So I'm loving where I'm at now. And I'm loving when this pandemic goes away. And I love that I'm not alone because I love hearing you guys' stories. It's making me feel so much better.
Wow, thank you so much, Brittany. Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the greatest parts of doing these lunchtime conversations is that we do get to hear each other's perspectives, right? Because we do, especially with so much being Zoom, right? Like we're not like having these conversations that need to be had, and we may not see each other as real people sometimes. So I really appreciate you putting that human experience in there, and the reality that, you know, you were also a mother who wasn't getting to do what she needed to do with her own kids. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Awesome. So last, but certainly not least, we'll hear from Joy Levine, the Southwest Maricopa Regional Director of First Things First. Joy holds a Master of Arts degree in Cross-Cultural Studies, a Bachelor of Arts degree in Social Science, and has nearly 20 years of experience in early childhood administration, children and youth program development, and community outreach and engagement. During her tenure at First Things First, Joy has served as a quality assurance specialist, family support program specialist, and regional director. Before joining First Things First, Joy operated a 4-star Quality First Early Learning Center and comprehensive GED program, exclusively serving teen parents and their children. Joy, thanks so much for being here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and share your experience with us.
Thank you so much for having me here, and something I should have included, but of course, unfortunately neglected to include, is I am a mom. I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, and pandemic life with children 0 to 5 is a singular experience. And I think we have heard that so clearly today. And I see that and experience that as a professional, and I see that and experience that as a parent. And there's just not enough hugs and mad props and support and love to send to all of you who have made your way through. There's truly nothing like it. I do want to share a bit on the big picture side of what's been going on in childcare throughout Arizona, and I think these the stories that Gail and Brittany and Jamie have all shared really illustrate the challenges that the whole system has been going through. And so, you know, there was absolutely the time in which at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody just kind of slammed on the brakes and said, we're all going to stay home and we're going to try and figure this out. Now, what we know is that not everyone stayed home, because we have essential workers, and childcare is part of that. Just as a touch point, about half of the centers in Southeast Maricopa who participate in our Quality First programming did shut down at one point or another, possibly for extended periods of time throughout the pandemic. At this point, we have about 90% of our centers, not only in Southeast Maricopa, but across the state, that are back and operating, which is absolutely fantastic. And we appreciate that. And we know that families need that. What is kind of still all over the place and kind of a moving target is, what does that enrollment look like? The centers are open, the family homes are open, but are children enrolling? And are they attending consistently? And that, as I said, is really a bit of a moving target. And so as Quality First, which is our signature childcare program at First Things First, what have we been doing as we've maneuvered through the pandemic? The reality is that a lot of what we've done is attempted to collect data. Who's open at what time? We're monitoring that on a weekly basis. Is it a temporary closure? Does we think it's going to be more long-term? And how does that impact the policies and the decisions that we need to make at First Things First? And so, of course, for example, one of those things is we're not sending any coaches in person, you know, for most of the pandemic. That's beginning to start back as centers are comfortable now. But all of that moved virtual. And so, like everybody else, we had to figure out, what does that mean? What does that look like? What does support look like in a virtual environment? And how do you coach and walk through health and safety practices virtually? But we heard from the providers, they need that support, they want that support, and there is no way you're coming on site. So we had to kind of figure out what that all meant. I think one of the other pieces, and we've all kind of touched on that, is the financial strain. And so First Things First has committed to keeping the scholarships that we provide for childcare at the levels that they're at. And so whether a center was opened or closed temporarily, that had been consistent. And DES has a plan. I can put the link in the chat about how they'll be supporting childcare moving forward. All three COVID-related bills that passed at the federal level have ended up putting about $1 billion into childcare in Arizona over the next 3 years, which is phenomenal. But we all know that when something, as it filters down, there's questions, and how does it get there, and how does it get to the people in need? So you can see some of that in the DES plan that I'll put the link in the chat. I think the biggest thing for us on the policy side is really being able to figure out how to elevate the participant voice, the voices of the directors and the teachers. There was a committee that they convened of not only owners and directors, but also people who were providing that coaching experience. And those met on a monthly basis to say what's actually happening on the ground. Here's what it looks like, but what is it actually like? You tell us, and so then we can make the appropriate policy changes and adaptations. That is ongoing, and so that committee continues to meet, and there's some opportunity for surveys from directors and teachers, but it has been a challenge across the board. And we know that there's this tension between system level change and the immediate on the ground needs. And so that's where participant voice has just been absolutely vital. I know I'm at time, and I just want to say thank you for including First Things First, and for all of you who are doing this professionally and experiencing it personally. Thank you for sharing, thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting one another, because that is how we support our young children, and that is how they have the life and the experience and the growth and the development that they need. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Joy, for giving us all that perspective too. I think that's really interesting to hear it from a statewide, thought, and also, hearing that many of the childcare centers shut down even just in Southeast Maricopa. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah. Wow. Thank you to all of you for sharing, so vulnerably and so honestly with us about how this was. And it feels really good that we got to talk about this as kind of like a group of mothers. I mean, that's really kind of what we're doing. So that really, I think that's really helpful, to all of us who don't get to talk to each other about things like this so much anymore. So now we're going to break into a Q&A just briefly before heading into breakout rooms. Elizabeth, would you mind sharing any questions in the chat?
Sure. So Jenny, there weren't as many questions, but we had so many just endorsements and connections. So Gail, I just want to read out, that Christina had offered. She's heartbroken for you, and to hear that you were expected to go back after 4 weeks after carrying and birthing 2 twins. She said you are truly a warrior mama. And I think so many of us feel the same too. So thank you for sharing your story. And then also for Jamie and Brittany, another participant said, thank you for sharing your stories. Wow, your hearts to serve when your company and or your parents are not appreciating you all. That's just amazing. So yeah. I just want to echo, and I thought those were important to bring forth so that, they could be said out loud, and we could all, in our hearts, even if we aren't all speaking right now, I do feel like in our hearts, we are all sharing those same sentiments.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Looks like there is one question now that I said that. So Eileen is asking, do you think some of the billions will go to paid maternity leave? And I'm going to guess that's probably going to be for Joy.
For teachers. She wrote for teachers.
Oh, for teachers.
Right,
Thank
absolutely.
You.
So I am going to put the link in the chat for the DES plan for the 1 billion. That is specifically for childcare. And so there's some pieces that intersects with things like paid leave. The way that the plan looks like it's unfolding, and I say looks like it's unfolding because DES has really, Department of Economic Security, sorry, is the one who'll be administrating it. It looks like those decisions would be made on an individual business or center provider basis. However, one of the pieces of the plan is really focused on retention of staff. And of course, we all know that part of the way you retain staff is you provide that paid leave. So a little bit of a nuanced answer. I wish it was more straightforward, but that's what it looks like at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Joy. And thank you everyone for those thoughtful questions. I think I think everybody has given us a lot to think about. And I agree, the passion that these childcare providers, so someone just put in the chat, is just, it's amazing, right? Like knowing that you guys are putting that level of passion into your work is yeah, it's amazing. And you should absolutely have paid maternity leave. My goodness. So it's time to shift into breakout sessions for deeper discussions. Elizabeth, would you set the stage for us so we know what to expect?
I will, once I can figure out how to unmute. Awesome. So I just want to say thank you again to Gail and Jamie and Brittany and Joy. I love the fact that we all have our stories, not just from the provider side, but also from the motherhood side. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is one of the elements that in this pandemic that we don't hear nearly enough of how the burden that women are being called upon to shoulder and all the additional hats that we're wearing. So I just want to acknowledge each and every one of the people here and their own loved ones for that exact thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're headed to breakout rooms, as you know, probably about the next 10 minutes or so. Each of the breakout rooms will have a moderator. Breakout room moderators, let's stick to questions 1 and 3, which is basically let's hear everybody react and maybe share their stories around what it's like to be a mom and or provider, and to be hearing the stories we just heard and how many echoes into our own lives or differences we have. And then the second part is the resources. So we want to identify resources in our community so we can lift them up and we can raise those to everyone that's been here today. And also we can send those out to others that are perhaps, experiencing some of these childhood or childcare challenges that we also are experiencing. In addition to the moderator, we'll have the note taker that's there, and their job there is not to capture any one person's thought, but to get the general knowledge of the group. And then once we come back from our about 10 minutes there, each of the breakout room moderators will share one thought. I'm sure we would love to share a million thoughts, but one thought from each of those breakout rooms of just how the discussion went and the importance of what was discussed. So I think with that, we will all be transported into our randomly selected breakout rooms, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Awesome. I don't have my video on, and I think I might have just cut Jenny off, but I'm going to log us off Facebook real quick.